Hello there. Today you're working on a worksheet that's covering two-step equations. And this is a level 2 worksheet. So if you're having problems, maybe you should go to level 1, or if it's really easy for you, maybe you can move up to level 3. But I'm here to help you with this level 2 worksheet, so let's get started. It says right here, you should already know how to solve simple two-step equations. But let's take a look at some more difficult ones. The goal is to separate the numbers and variables, and you should already know that. In other words, by the time you're done with an equation, you should have something like a variable like d equals 7. So you separated the variable on one side and the 7 on the other side. Think of the equal sign like a wall. And that way you know you have one variable on one side and a number on the other side. But what do we do if we have variables on both sides of the equation? Take a look at the example below. It has 4n on one side and 2n on the other, which means we have to move the variable, not the number. So in level 1, we were moving the number all the time. This time, we're going to have to move the variable. Let's check out the helpful example. We have 4n equals 2n plus 8. As you can see, we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. We have the 4n over here, and we have the 2n over here. So it says right here, there is no reason to move the plus 8 because there are variables on both sides. Because we move the 8 over to here, the 4n is going to be saying,
"What are you doing? I've got a variable over here. Why are you moving a number next to me?"
So really, we should be moving the 2n. And it says right here, we will need to separate the 2n from the plus 8. Let's move it to the other side and join it with the other variable. Since 2n is positive, we will need to do the opposite operation, which is negative 2n, to both sides. And as you can see right here, they took the 2n right here, and they sent it over. And since you're sending it to the opposite side, you're going to do the opposite operation, which is minus 2n. Some of you might be thinking, wait a second, how do I know this is a positive or a negative? Well, if you do not see a sign, it is always positive. So if you do not see a sign, it's positive, and the opposite operation of positive is negative, or the opposite operation of addition is subtraction. All right, so they subtracted the 4n minus 2n, which gave us 2n. And then the 2n minus 2n cancel each other out. And we're left over here with a plus 8. Let's continue down. Let me move this down a little so we can see it better. It next says, we are left with 2 and n next to each other, which I just told you. Which means multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we need to divide both sides by 2. And as you can see right here, we're left with the 2n right here. And you should know that 2n equals 2 times n, and we'll need to send the 2 to the other side to join the 8. Because remember, we're trying to separate the variables or the variable from the numbers. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 because we're doing the opposite operation, and 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. But remember, any number times 1 is itself. So 1 times n will give you n, and 8 divided by 2 will give us 4, so we end up with n equals 4. And as you can see, the variables on one side over here, and the numbers on the other. So we are finished. And it says right here, the number and variable are on opposite sides, so we are finished. N equals 4. There's a pretty good example. If you do get confused, all you have to do is look up here at the example and use it to help solve the problems. Well, let's get started. It says right here for problems 1 through 3, now your turn. What would you move first? So let's take a look at problem number 1. We have r plus 10 equals 6r. Well, you got variables on both sides, so no one is happy. If you move the 10 over here, basically all you're doing is moving the 10 next to the 6 and the r, and there's already a variable there. So why would you move the 10? If you move the 6r this way, well, you still have variables and numbers over here. To save yourself time, the best thing to do would be to move the r over to here. And that way the 10's all by himself, he's happy, and then later you can take care of this side. So it says first I would move the r. Let me clean that up so it looks nice. First I would move the r. What I'd like you to do is problems 2 and 3 on your own. When you're finished, come back to me and we will check your answers. Welcome back. Problem 2. You have 8 minus 4h on this side of the equal sign, and you have 2h over here. So clearly no one's happy here, and no one's happy here because you got numbers and a variable, or numbers and variables on both sides. So the question is, who would you move first, or what would you move first? Well, if you try to move the 8 to the other side, basically all you're doing is joining it with the 2h, and still no one's happy. So that really doesn't help us. And by the way, I like using that happy and not happy kind of terminology, as you hear me sometimes say, because your goal is to make everyone happy, and to make everyone happy, you have the variables separated from the numbers. So let's say we move this 4h over here. So now the 4h is on this side over here. Well, it would be gone, so guess what? The 8 would be happy. That would be a good thing to do for your first move. So it says first I would move the 4h. And by doing that, you're basically moving all the variables over to here. Problem number 3. We have 9 equals 12 minus 5p. Again, I'm treating this equal sign like it's a wall, and our goal is to separate the variables from the numbers. If I look at this really closely, I already know the 9 is happy. He's got no one next to him. He's a number. He's good. But over here, no one's happy because you have the 12 and the 5 and a variable right here. So basically, you want to move something over here to start making people a little happier. And on this problem, we only have one variable right there, that p. So you don't want to be moving the 5p over here because the 9 will be looking at you going, what are you doing? I was happy. Now I'm not happy because I have a variable. So you don't want to move the 5p over. You don't want to move the 9 this way because you're basically moving it towards the variable. So that wouldn't work. So you'd want to move the 12. And by doing that, now you made the 12 happy because he joined the 9, another number, and he got away from the variable. So it says first I'd move the 12. So those are problems 1, 2, and 3. Let's move on to problems 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The directions say solve the equations. Let's take a look at problem 4. We have 72 minus 4n equals 5n. Well, I should not move the 72 to the other side because all you're doing is joining it with another variable, and that does not help. And we don't want to move the 5n over here because now we just piled everybody onto one side. So I think the first thing you want to do is move the 4n, the minus 4n. And since you're moving it to the opposite side, you'd want to do the opposite operation, which is plus 4n. And you'd want to do that to both sides, plus 4n. So you're left with 72. And the 4n minus 4n is 0. They cancel each other out, so these guys are gone. And then you have 5n plus 4n. Well, 5n plus 4n equals 9n. If you can't visualize that, just think you have 5 n's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're adding 4 more n's, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which gives us 9n. So 5n plus 4n gives us 9n. And now our next question is, who are we going to move next? Well, you're not moving the 72. You want to separate this 9 from the n right here. So we'd want to move the 9 over to the other side, over to there. And to do that, we'd have to do the opposite operation. Well, 9 next to n equals 9 times n. So the opposite operation would be division. So we'd want to divide both sides by 9. And 9 divided by 9 gives us 1. And 1n equals n. So we have n equals 72 divided by 9 is 8. So 8 equals n. Well, we went over problem 4. What I'd like you to do is problems 5 and 6 on your own. When you're finished, come back to me and we'll check your answers. See you in a bit. Welcome back. You were supposed to do problems 5 and 6 on your own. Before we start 5 and 6, remember, this is just a help video. If you think this is too easy for you and you don't need my help, just do the problems on your own. If you're struggling and I'm going too fast for you, you can always press pause, rewind, and listen to me again, and hopefully that'll help you. That's the great thing about having a video. But again, I'm here to help the people who need help, so let's continue. Problem 5. You have 8k plus 34. So no one is happy on this side of the equal sign. And over here you got 6k and no one's happy here either, because you have numbers and variables on both sides of the equal sign. And your goal is to separate them. So now you have to ask yourself, who can you move to start making people happy or to separate the variables and numbers? Well, if you move this 34 over here, that would be silly because all you're doing is joining the 34 with the 6k, and that doesn't solve anything. If we move the 6k over here, well, basically, again, we're joining the variable with the other number. So I think we want to move this 8k over to the other side. We don't have a sign right here, and I just mentioned at the top that if you don't see a sign, it is positive. And if you're moving it to the opposite side, you have to do the opposite operation, which would be a negative or a minus. So we're going to do minus 8k right here. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So we're going to minus 8k right there. So 8k minus 8k gives you 0, so they're gone. And you're left with a 34. Do you notice I don't write the plus sign because we just talked about it? If you don't write a sign, you know this right here is a plus. So I shouldn't have to write it over and over again. Over here we have negative 8k and 6. Well, basically you just say 8k minus 6k. That gives you 2k, and you take the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number was the 8, so it would be a negative 2k. So right here we have negative 2k. And we look at it again, and we have to decide who we're going to move so we can finish this problem. Well, you're not moving the 34 because he's already by himself and he's happy. He's like,
Dude, I'm by myself. This is cool.
so he's happy. But the 2 is next to the k. So we want to move the negative 2 to the other side. And we just mentioned this a second ago. A negative 2k means negative 2 times k. So the opposite operation would be division. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. A negative 2 divided by a negative 2 will cancel each other out. So you're left with k. And 34 divided by 2 is 17. And since we only have one negative, it's a negative 17 for your answer. Remember, 2 negatives make a positive, but if you only have one negative, you'll be left with a negative for your answer. Let me clean that up really quick over here. By the way, some of you might be wondering why I did a negative 2 divided by a negative 2. Remember, you're trying to get the variable by itself. It cannot have a negative attached to it. So you have to send the negative over to the other side too. Let's take a look at problem number 6. Problem 6. You have 7f. Well, you have a number and a variable next to each other, so no one is happy. You have the equal sign or a wall. You have 3f minus 52, so no one is happy because, again, you have numbers next to a variable. Now the question is, who are you going to move? And if you look at the prior problem, you should already be saying to yourself, hey, I'm going to move the 3f. That way, the negative 52 will be happy because he will be by himself. He will be a happy number. So let's move that 3f. There is no sign right here, so that basically means it's a positive. So we're going to have to do a minus 3f to both sides, minus 3f. The 3f's cancel each other out. And right here, you have a minus 52. Do not forget about that negative sign. A lot of people forget that, and that just messes up the whole problem. Then we have 7f minus 3f, which will give us 4f. So now we're asking ourselves, who can we move to make everybody happy? Well, of course, the 4 wants to get away from the f. He's like, get away from me! And the f's like,
Yeah, you get away from me!
no, you get away from me!
No, you get away from me!
So the 4 decides to go to the opposite side, and we just already talked about this. 4f means 4 times f. So if he goes to the opposite side, we need to do the opposite operation, which means we need to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. And 4 divided by 4 gives you 1. And 1 times f is f. And negative 52 divided by 4 will give us what? 13. And again, you had a negative and a positive number, so the answer will be negative. So you end up with negative 13. So you have f equals negative 13 for your answer. What I'd like you to do is 7, 8, and 9 on your own. When you're finished, come back to me and we'll go over your answers. See you in a bit. Welcome back. We're looking at problems 7, 8, and 9. Problem 7, you have 4w. Well, you got a number next to a variable, so they're not happy. You have 45 minus 11w. You have variable and numbers on that side too, so no one is happy. So the question is, who are you going to move to start making people happy or to separate the numbers and the variables? You don't want to move the 45 because he'll just join the variable, which that doesn't help. So we want to move this minus 11w. And since you have a minus and you're sending it to the opposite side, you want to do the opposite operation. So you'll want to do plus 11w to both sides. Well, 11w minus 11w is 0. So that gives you 45. And 4w plus 11w gives you 15w. Now the 45 is happy because there's no variables next to him, but the 15 is still next to the w. And again, we've already talked about this. You should know that's multiplication. So if we send it to the opposite side, we're going to have to do the opposite operation. So we're going to divide both sides by 15. And 15 divided by 15 is 1, and 1 times w is w. And 45 divided by 15 is 3. So w equals 3. By the way, if you're not 100% sure that w equals 3, there's nothing wrong with going back and plugging this 3 into where the w's are and solving it to make sure you did it correctly. And what I mean is, you had 4w equals 45 minus 11w. And what you do is you change all the w's to 3. So this would be 4 times 3 equals 45 minus 11 times 3. And 4 times 3 is 12 equals 45 minus 11 times 3 is 33. That would give you, let me write it right down here, 12 equals 45 minus 33, which is 12. Do you see how 12 equals 12? That is a check to prove that w equals 3 is the correct answer. I do not recommend you doing that for every answer because that'd be a long waste of time. But if you're not 100% sure, sometimes you can plug it in to check your answer. Let's move on to problem number 8. Problem 8 says 56 minus 3x equals negative 91. Well, this side, no one is happy. But on this side, the negative 91 is happy. He's all by himself. There's no variables next to him. He's all good. He's like,
Dude, I'm so good.
so who are you going to move on this problem? Well, you're definitely not going to move the 3x because the 91 is going to be saying,
Dude, what are you doing? I was all happy. Now you made a variable on my side.
so you don't want to do that. You'll want to move the 56 over here to join the 91, and the 91 will say,
Yeah, come on over, 56.
the 56 is like, yeah, high five, woohoo! So we're going to move the 56, and the 56 does not have a sign. So that means it's positive, And if we're moving it to the opposite side, we're going to do the opposite operation, which means we're going to do minus 56 to both sides. 56 minus 56 is 0, so you're left with 3x. But wait a second, there was a minus sign or a negative right there, so this is negative 3x equals negative 91 minus 56. Since the signs are the same, you're going to have to add them. 91 plus 56. 1 plus 6 is 7. 9 plus 5 is 14. You end up with 147, and since they're both negative, this answer will be negative. You take the sign of the bigger number, which is 91. It's negative, so it's negative. All right, so we are going to move the 3 to the other side because he wants to join, maybe it's a she wants to join the negative 147, and we already know that negative 3x is the same as negative 3 times x, so we're going to do the opposite operation, which is divide by negative 3 to both sides. Divide. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, and 1 times x is x. And what is 147 divided by 3? 3 goes into 14, what, 5 times? Nope, 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. We subtract, we get 2. We bring down the 7. We get 27, and 3 goes into 27 9 times. 9 times 3 is 27. So we get 49. But we had two negatives. We had a negative and negative. And when you're multiplying or dividing, two negatives make a positive. Remember, the rules are different for positive and negative numbers when you're adding and subtracting and when you're multiplying and dividing. The rules are a little different. So make sure you understand those rules. So we end up with a positive 49, but we don't have to write positive, so x equals 49 for our answer. Problem number 9, we have 45 plus 7d. We have a variable and numbers on the same side of the equal sign, so no one's happy. Over here we have 37d. Again, we have a number and a variable on the same side as the equal sign, so no one is happy on this problem. So the best thing to do is to join the variables together, so we want to move the 7d. And it's a positive or addition, and the opposite of addition will be subtraction. Minus 7d minus 7d. Well, plus 7d minus 7d equals 0, so these are gone, and you're left with 45 on this side of the equal sign. He's totally happy because he is not near a variable. On this side, we're going to have 37d minus 7d, which gives us 30d. And the 30 needs to get away from the d and join the 45. We know this is multiplication, so the opposite operation will be to divide both sides by 30. Well, we know 30 divided by 30 is 1, so we're left with d. But what is 45 divided by 30? Well, 30 goes into 45 one time. That would be 30. You subtract, you would get 15. You will need to add a decimal right here and bring it straight up. So you have a decimal, and that allows us to add a 0, and we can bring that straight down. So we have 150. 3 goes into 15 5 times, so my guess would be this would be 5 times 30, which would be 150. We subtract, we get 0, so the answer is 1.5. So 1.5 equals D. There you go for problems 7, 8, and 9. What I'd like you to do is try to do problems 10, 11, and 12 on your own. When you're finished, come back to me and check your answers. Again, if I'm going too slow or you think this is easy, you do not have to listen to me. But if you still need my help, come back to me and we will go over problems 10, 11, and 12. See you in a bit. Welcome back. We are doing 10, 11, and 12. Problem 10. You have 9s minus 85 on this side of the equal sign. So no one is happy because you have a variable next to numbers. Over here we have negative 16s, and again we have a variable and number on the same side of the equal sign, so no one is happy. So we're going to have to move something to start making people happy. Well, if you move the 85 over, he's not going to be happy because he's still next to a variable. So we must have to move this 9s. It doesn't have a sign, so we know it's positive. And since we're sending it to the opposite side, we have to do the opposite operation, which means we do minus 9s to both sides. 9s minus 9s is 0, so they're gone. And you're left with negative 85. Yes, this is a negative. It's a minus sign, and minus and a negative are really the same thing. So you cannot forget this minus or this negative sign. So you have a negative 85. Then you have a negative 16s minus 9s. Well, the signs are the same, which means we have to add it. So we get 16 plus 9 equals 25s. By the way, if you're confused about this right here, this negative 16s minus 9s, think of it this way. You can rewrite the problem so you have 16s plus negative 9s. And since the signs are the same, you just add them together. If they're different, then you would subtract. So if I had a negative 16s plus 9s, since he doesn't have a sign, he's positive, they're different, so we would subtract. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're still confused, you might want to ask your teacher to better explain positive and negative numbers when you're adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. So let's get back to the problem. This is actually a negative. Sorry about that. Forgot the negative because the biggest number is 16 and it's negative, so you give the final answer a negative. That only works with adding and subtracting. So make sure you don't get confused with multiplication and division. So we know we're going to want to move the negative 25 to the other side. Since this is multiplication, we're going to want to divide negative 25 on both sides. Divide by negative 25. Negative 25 divided by negative 25 is 1. So you end up with s because 1 times s is s. And over here we got 85 divided by 25. So I'm going to come over here and write 85 divided by 25, a little long division. Well, 2 times 25 is 50. 3 times 25 is 75. We're going to subtract and we get 10. We're going to need to add a decimal and bring it straight up. And this allows us to add another 0. So we can bring this down and change this number to 100. You should all know that 25 goes into 100 4 times because you know 4 quarters or 4 25-cents equal $1. 4 times 25 is 100, and we subtract, we get 0, so the answer is 3.4. So 3.4 equals s. But hold on, we have right here, we have a negative and a negative. And when you're dividing or multiplying, 2 negatives give you a positive. So the answer would be a positive 3.4, or you could just say 3.4. Means the same. Remember, the rules are different for adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing negative and positive numbers. I think I've said that enough. I won't repeat myself. Sorry about that. Problem 11. You have 6g. So the 6 and the g are not happy because you got a variable and a number next to each other. And over on this side, you have 99 plus 28g. You have numbers next to a variable on this side, so no one is happy. So the question is, who can you move to start making people happy? Well, of course, you're going to move the 28g to join the 6g, so you're moving the variables to one side. This is a positive, so the opposite operation would be minus 28g minus 28g. Well, 28 minus 28 gives you a 0, so that's gone. And you're left with 99 equals 6g minus 28g. All you do is 28 minus 6, and that gives you 22. And since the 28 is the bigger number, it's going to be a negative 22g. So you end up with a negative 22g. Now you're going to need to separate the 22 from the g because he wants to join the 99. So the numbers are on one side and the variables are on the other. To do that, you're going to have to divide both sides by 22. Actually, negative 22. Don't forget to bring the negative with you. So this will be negative 22. You're going to divide negative 22, just like that. So that way you get rid of the negative and the 22 at the same time. So this is all gone, and you're left with g equals whatever 99 divided by negative 22 is. Don't worry about the negative right now. So you have 99 divided by 22. 4 times 22 is 88. You're going to subtract. You're going to get 1, 1, correct? Yes, because 9 minus 8 is 1, and 9 minus 8 is 1, which tells us we're going to have to add another decimal there, bring it straight up, add our line, and we can add a 0. We bring our zeros straight down. And we just said that 4 times 22 is 88, and now we have 110. So my guess would be 5. And 5 times 22, 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And there we go. There's our 110. So this would be 5. 5 times 22 is 110. We subtract, we get 0. There is the work on how I got 4.5, which goes right here. But you're not finished yet, because you had right here, you had a negative number and a positive number, and when you're multiplying and dividing, if you only have one negative, the final answer will be negative. So this is a negative 4.5. Last problem, problem 22. You have 24 over here on this side. He is happy because he's all by himself. He does not have a variable. But over here you have 40, you have 8, and you have v. So you have numbers and a variable on this side, and everyone's like,
oh no, we're next to each other. We want to get away from each other.
So now the question is, who are you going to move? And you should already know you should move the 40 over here to join the 24. That would be a quick way to make the 40 and the 24 happy. Now the question is, what is this thing right here? What does v over 8 mean? Well, yes, it is a fraction, but v over 8 also means v divided by 8. It also could be written like this in long division. So these are all the same. So if this means division, when we send the 8 to the opposite side, we must do the opposite operation, which means we must multiply. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's first move the 40. Let me erase that really quick. So we're going to move the 40 to the other side to join the 24 to make them happy. And since there's no sign here, you know that's positive, so we're going to do a minus 40, the opposite operation to both sides. 40 minus 40 is 0. It's gone. Over here, well, let's stay on the side first. And then we have a minus v over 8 equals 24 minus 40. We just rewrite it so the bigger number's on top. 40 minus 24. Well, we're going to borrow from the 4. It becomes a 3. The 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. And 3 minus 2 is 1. The bigger number was 40, and it's negative, so this must be negative 16. When you're adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers or integers, you take the sign of the bigger number. So since 40 was bigger, we have a negative 16. Now I know you have this negative up here, right here next to the v, but you can assign this negative to the v or the 8. Since we want the variable to be positive, we're going to assign the negative actually to the 8. And we just talked about this a second ago, and we said this was division. So if we send the 8 to the other side, we're going to have to do the opposite operation, which means we're going to multiply by 8. So we're going to times both sides by 8. And it's not just 8. We want to assign it a negative. That way we get rid of this negative too. So we're actually multiplying both sides by negative 8. So the negative and the 8 are gone. So you're left with v on this side. And over here you're going to have negative 8 times negative 16. Well, let's multiply 8 times 16. Do you notice how I don't worry about the negative numbers until I'm finally done when I'm multiplying or dividing? 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So we get 128. and we have a negative here and a negative here, and we've already talked about it. When you're multiplying or dividing, two negatives will give you a positive. So this becomes a positive 128 equals V. But remember, you don't have to write the positive sign. It's actually up to you. It's not wrong or right. I just don't write it. So it's V equals 128. And guess what? We are done. I hope I helped, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.